Folded and tucked into intimate bays and majestic headlands, the coast of Britain is the skin of the nation's body. It gives Britain her shape and defends her very being. Satellite pictures show a coastline that's very familiar, yet hardly anyone's seen it all at close quarters. Photographs give an inkling, but what you really need to do is fly. Fly around the entire mainland of England, Scotland and Wales with experts to explain what you see and ordinary people who live on the coast to say what it means to them. That way, you paint a living picture of the shape of the nation.
We really ought to start by getting this absolutely right. As a geologist, I'd say not all Britain arose from the azure main. South Wales, for example, arose from steaming coal forests. But here, there was a sea, warm and tropical.
Flying into the most westerly point of England, Land's End. Valerian, the Romans called it, the seat of storms.
And Land's End certainly did arise in great upwellings of molten granite, shouldering aside the sediments of that ancient sea. What you're looking at now is the solid, hard remains, laid bare by the onslaught of the raging Atlantic. Just behind the hard granite, the softer rocks have been washed away by the ocean to form Mounts Bay.
Thousands of years ago, Stone Age man built settlements on these cliffs. Their descendants preferred to snuggle in the shelter of places like Mousehole. Mousehole?
Mousehole! And Newlyn. Fishing industry's doing really well here. We land up to £15 million worth of fish a year. Mostly sole and ache and monkfish. And we've had to build a new quay to unload them. 90% we export, but plenty find their way to the fish markets inland.
Rain thy boat into this harbour. Long time, my dear, waited thee. Furl thy sails and sail no further. Thy pretty boat no more to sail to sea. Harbour water new and sunny. The red Valerian warms the stone. Here I wait and yet I'm bonny, and only for thy sake alone.
Flying down now to the most southerly point on the coast of mainland Britain, the Lizard.
My sails to mend, my cordage to renew. We will spend a while together.
Now the rocks have changed to hard serpentine that juts out to sea to form strangely carved islands and promontories. A vast slab of ancient ocean floor shoved along and dumped just here. That's the Lizard, very hard and stable.
Yes, indeed. Just the very foundation we needed for our precision telecommunications satellite tracking aerials here at Glenhilly, the ones that relay telephone and television programs right around the world.
You find various clues along this part of the coast that the actual level of the sea has risen and fallen quite dramatically in prehistoric times. There's a big network of drowned river valleys coming up any minute now. The Fowle River and its tributaries carved out deep valleys before and during the last ice age. Then when the ice finally melted, the sea level rose several hundred feet and flooded the valleys the rivers had carved out.
So now you find these delightful haunts for boating.
Oh, it's a lovely spot. Warmest wintering place in the British Isles, with temperatures like Nice on the French Riviera. So it is claimed.
St. Maul's Well was traditionally believed to be a sovereign cure for worms.
And between the flooded valleys, tentacles of land reach down to the sea with some of the most beautiful village names in England, St. Anthony and St. Just in Roseland.
Look at this complicated coastline. It's the scalloped edge of a huge depression in the Earth's crust, now under the sea. They discovered, with deep echo sounding, there's ancient desert sands 6 miles thick, filling that depression. And the coast itself is a series of bays, within bays, within bays.
Real Smuggler's Coast this was, and we're coming up to the River Foy estuary, a natural harbour surveyed in 1786 by a young naval lieutenant, James Cook, who later became Captain Cook. His survey was so accurate, his charts were used until quite recently. But in Cook's time, Foy itself was raided so badly by the press gangs that there was only 1 man to every 7 women.
Heading now for the mecca of tourist Cornwall. Non-resident cars are banned from Polperro, and it takes a good 10 minutes to walk down through its narrow streets to the tiny harbour, thronged with summer visitors. Rather less cramped, but similarly geared to sell you a Cornish pasty or a Cornish pisky, according to your taste, is Loo. Up on top of those seaside hills, there's a monkey sanctuary. Then we're back down to Seaton, Downderry, Port Wrinkle, and some beautiful unspoilt stretches around the rocky perimeter of White Sand Bay, where a child can climb, dig, swim and play from dawn till dusk. No more big towns until Plymouth. Which brings us to a county that's never been one to let its attractions go unsung.
Come and tour a green meadow and a lane of birds on the waving bough, beetling cliffs by the surging main, rich red loam for the plough. Heaven's the fount of the bravest blood that braces England's breed. Her maidens fair as the apple bud, and her men are men indeed. All England's counties, isles sail the sea from east to west for 7, but the gem of that fair galaxy is Devon, glorious Devon.
Round the southernmost tip of Devon, Paul Point, with its Coast Guard station.
Notice how any shore facing west or southwest is scoured by the sea and there's no beach to speak of.
Start Point, with its lighthouse.
But round the coast, where the shore's more easterly, the ocean currents deposit sand and shingle. Look at Slapton Lee. The deposit's completely blocked off an inlet in the coast to form a freshwater lake.
Down Devon way, you've heard them speak of heaven. But if you see the dot, you'll know it's prettier far in Devon. Down Brixham way, where the brown sails flap when the boats bring in their catches. Such silver shoals on a sunlit morn, no place in heaven matches, no place in heaven.
And in the same modest vein, he'd probably claim that the hymn written at Brixham was the most famous on earth. Approaching the English Riviera, where hoteliers are hoping we'll all abide with them.
People are getting tired with Heathrow and abroad, and they're starting to rediscover the coasts of Britain. But there is no point in just calling Torquay the English Riviera. You've got to give the customer what they'd expect to find there. So our hotels have built new swimming pools, the town's built a new leisure centre, new marina, new shopping centre, and this resort has really taken off again.
When the coal forests flourished, Britain lay on the equator, but later it drifted north into a tropical desert climate. That's when the rocks we call the New Red Sandstone were laid down, fossilized sand dunes.
Railway runs right along the coast here. It's the old Cornish Riviera line. Beautiful views. Under the red sandstone cliffs to Dawlish, where the sea's always fighting to get at the railway line. Succeeds sometimes too.
Past Dawlish Warren and across the River Exe to the Georgian resort of Exmouth.
A rash of caravanitis and a spectacular coastal path to Budleigh Salterton, where Millet painted The Boyhood of Raleigh, who was born close by, past more caravans to the stack of Big Picket Rock to Sidmouth in its gap.
The River Sid, a brown moorland stream, disappears in shingle at one end of the seafront. Huge cliffs shaved down almost sheer to the east. Dunscombe Cliff and Beer Head.
And suddenly you come across the most unstable coast in England. No architect who valued his job would have designed it like this. Porous chalk and sand on top of waterproof clay. Centuries of rainfall seep out over the clay, and what happens?
Christmas Eve, 1839. Coast Guard at Rosedon rushes to the window of his cliff-top cottage. There's a wondrous crack. 500 acres of good farming land, including the Coast Guard's cottage, slide majestically down onto the shore.
A few more centuries, and the sea will have washed it all away to expose a new line of cliffs. Meanwhile, the Rosedon landslides completely overgrown by dense woodland.
The Cobb at Lyme Regis, where they filmed the opening of the French Lieutenant's Woman. But the town had 1,200 years of written history before that.
On past a still active landslide, and we're at Blackven in Dorset. Golden Cap, highest point on the south coast, 630 feet. Gets its name from the sandy crest on top.